All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion.
It had the old tape players and stuff. I don't know. I wish I still had them, honestly, although now I don't have anything to play them with. So
what do you do? I mean, what do you do with your CDs now? What do you do with them? I have a book.
Yeah,
I have a binder. Hold on, I'll get my binder.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, the old binders and stuff.
Yeah, I got this thing right here. I got this binder, dude.
Yeah.
Of my CDs.
Yeah, I have I don't know how many binders now. I got some little ones too. My son messes with them usually, and I have all these old drawings on them and stuff.
American Gladiator soundtrack,
dude. Video quality is really horrible on my end.
Nah, it's all you. It's not me. It's an American Gladiator soundtrack CD. I also have.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. I have other ones I know you'll appreciate in here, but I going off memory. So, what do I do with these things?
Yeah, I don't know. You can put them in the microwave and they'll blow up. I mean, that's kind of fun. There we go. I recognize that. Yeah. That's the What Hits one, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, What Hits.
Yeah. See how good I am?
It's pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Yeah. That's a really good album, too. It has a good mix.
That's why I got it.
That's
a fan favorite. It's the most radio hits on an album probably that you're going to find. So why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, let's just jump into it because you got an appointment coming up. And I forgot that Nathan doesn't have school today because, surprise, surprise, curse of the gifted of the firefighter.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is in 2 days, which I completely forgot about in general. Yeah. And then we were talking about meals and they're like, what are we going to make for Thanksgiving? I'm like, I don't know, man. We got time to figure it out. They're like, it's 3 days away.
No, you don't.
Okie dokie. So let's get into it, man. You've been into a lot of stuff since the first time we did our episode. And I was trying to think of a way to compliment you, but not really, because I don't want to do that. But I think what I've realized is you are my most liked, also personally most frustrating influencer in disguise on Instagram because you do all the things that I hate.
I think I'm an influencer.
You do all the things that I hate. But you have this little extra bite about it where you actually learn about them and you give reasonable responses on why you do these things. And that drives me crazy. I just put a thing up the other day about this guy who's like, let me show you my morning routine. And his first hour was goofy stuff. It was
oh yeah. I think I remember where you were asking if it was satire or not.
I couldn't tell. And I went in the comments and they couldn't tell either. But he said I lay on this mat because it alkalizes my body and separates my red blood cells. I'm like, oh, I hate you so much. But then I see you're like, oh, I train barefoot and I do sauna therapy. I'm like, oh my, you're so close. You're just, but then you also write articles.
I have red light therapy too.
Yeah. But then you also write articles about BDNF for Power Athlete. I'm like, what is this guy? He's the real deal here. So give me a quick rundown, man, because you've done a ton of stuff in the past year. So what have you done? And then we'll go right into PTSDecember.
It's hard to keep track of it because I do stay pretty busy. And it just seems and it's not on purpose. It just kind of happens. After I promoted, I focused on learning the role of being a captain, and they make you get your fire inspector. So I was focused on that and some other classes. And then basically after a year of that, I was like, okay, now I'm going to actually do a class I enjoy, which is when I pursued becoming a power athlete coach and getting certified with them. And then from there, it's just progressed. I did an adaptive athlete seminar too. So I've kind of been focusing on the fun strength and conditioning side of things. Cause when I first got back into firefighting, I kind of took a break from coaching and everything. Honestly, I was feeling a little bit burnt out from it. But then obviously I missed it and got back into it. So then after that, I got with power athlete. Now I'm doing adaptive athlete stuff. Still trying to do a lot of mental health things.
Doing this thing. This is your shirt with the Project Resilience stuff on the back.
But it's honestly hard for me to keep track of all the different stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
But Project Resilience is a big one. that's another thing I basically connected with through Power Athlete. And I guess for those that don't know what it is, I'll give a brief description of it. Um, it's basically a network of strength coaches and gyms that provide both physical fitness training and mental health services for veterans, and they opened it up to first responders once I started doing stuff with them. So, and every spot is kind of different. Like, and they have a gym in California where they have like 2 classes a week. It's free for veterans and first responders, and they also do group therapy. For mine, I just have my garage gym, so I try to do it twice a month. Sometimes I just have to do it once a month. It just kind of depends. But basically, just some group classes, and then if people need some mental health resources, I can connect them with that.
Because it's kind of like an all call,
Yeah,
right? Like you register as a host site, and then you say like, hey, I'm doing a workout in 2 weeks in my garage. Come on by. And if you have a gym, you can do it too. But then they cast a broad net, and whoever wants to come by to get involved or get a workout in or get some help just comes by, and it's like a 1-to-1 it's like an immediate deliverable and immediately helping someone that might not have been contacted otherwise, right?
exactly. And I like it because, it was obviously a big part of my therapy, and now with like PTSDecember too, I'm trying to do things like I say in my description for all the workouts, like you don't have to have PTSD to come in and work out. This is a great way to prevent PTSD from happening in the first place, or at least just to where gets to a bad point. Sometimes PTSD is kind of a natural response, so you can't just, oh, I did this, so I'm never going to have it. It's probably going to happen, but it'll help make to where you have tools to deal with it, and it won't get as bad to a point like what happened to me.
Right.
So
And we certainly don't have enough recording space to go through our first encounter on the
yeah,
podcast, the 2-part saga.
yeah,
But let's do it in about 90 seconds.
okay,
Run through, just because I do want people to know who are listening for the first time or aren't familiar with you, the depth of your experience and the legitimacy that you bring with to these movements, because it's profound. It's a real deal.
yeah. Yeah, I'll try to do a little 90-second stint of it. So I was a Marine Corps veteran. I got out of the Marines after fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Had some problems with PTSD. Got better for a brief time period and started coaching CrossFit, and then got hired on by a fire department. Things were good for a while. Eventually, things got way worse because I wasn't doing enough for my mental health. Um, I was wrongfully terminated, and things just hit a huge downward spiral from there. The VA diagnosed me with being bipolar and schizophrenic, which was not the case at all. But it put me on a ton of prescription meds that made things way worse. I ended up in the hospital. Eventually, wound up at Camp Hope, which is based out of Houston. It's a place for veterans and first responders for help with PTSD. Got better, started coaching again, started volunteer firefighting to kind of get my feet wet again, and eventually just kind of got better, got my family back, and I got hired on by another department and started coaching in my garage. So I think that was about 90 seconds.
That's pretty good, man. That was really good.
Yeah.
It took 2.5 hours down to 90 seconds right there. We left out the part about you running naked down the hallway at the treatment facility, but if you want to listen to that, go back to one of the first episodes of this thing. It was pretty awesome that you shared that. Okay, so now you've been doing all this stuff. You're establishing your fire department. You're promoted to captain. You're starting to do a personal investment on your education back to strength and conditioning. You're coaching more. And you develop this thing called PTSDecember. We're just going to jump right into that because I want that to be the focus of this, because it's something that you're really building now, and you took on your own focus of it and made your own awesome new logo and graphic of it. And I think it's time to rock and roll with that thing. It's coming up in, unbeknownst to me, like a week and a half, because I don't do schedules well. So take us through that, man, from start to finish. Let's get some conversation going about this thing.
So, the whole goal of it is, everything is reactive when it comes to mental health, and just the fire service in general tends to be reactive. People run a quote unquote bad call, And that's when, hey, oh, let's have them talk to someone. Oh, they ran this bad call. Let's get them some help now. And my goal is for us to already have things in place that will help when those bad calls arise, that people won't be, just what's the phrase I want to use? I don't know. Just left for dead,
Sure.
like to where they'll at least have something, because again, bad calls are going to happen, bad things are going to happen. But if you can establish, at least a baseline, get a good foundation of some mental and physical health going, you're going to be a lot better off. Um, and that's my goal with PTS December. Um, and it worked out well that with obviously December runs into the name with it and everything, and um, I know that December also tends to just be a tough time of year. A lot of times, like if you look, people tend to think like there's more suicides in December, but I actually think that's just a myth.
Yeah.
But it's still a very stressful time.
It
The
is.
holidays, and there's just I don't know a lot going on. So that's a whole other reason. I'm still doing the 5-5-5 like I did with Devote December.
Cool.
But which is the 5 minutes of mindfulness, 5 minutes of walking, and 5 minutes of mobility. However, you want to break that down or add more into it, it's just a way to start developing good habits.
And so this isn't. So let's just keep talking about this. First of all, I haven't looked in a couple of years, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a myth that December and the winter months are the worst times are the most prevalent times for suicide. I think
Yeah,
what it was the spring months, and what they said was a couple things. In December, even though it's a bad time, we tend to reflect more on the bad things for a lot of people. You're also included in a lot more stuff, one way or the other. Like you're seeing people, you're invited out, even out of obligation to go to your family's house, and you're around people more and more.
right.
One of the things they contrasted that against was the spring months, where now it's like voluntary if I'm going to call Matt to go hang out, and maybe I don't call you, and you're sitting home, we're like, why isn't anybody calling me? And then you start to spiral kind of downwards in your thought bubble of despair, of isolation and kind of withdrawing and all that stuff. There's also some other things, and you're exactly the kind of guy I want to mention this to, because I know you actually study it and read up on it if it catches your ear, because it caught my attention, but I didn't do anything with it. They started linking um, depression and feelings of suicide and stress to an allergic response that happens in the spring due to just like outside allergens, environmental stuff, and all that
Hmm.
causes a certain level of inflammation that kind of throws everything haywire. And that is like a comorbidity or a co-founding factor of depression leading to a suicide attempt. So, knowing that you're a legitimate influencer, meaning that you have the brains behind the stuff that I hate to see people do.
Yeah.
That's something that we can kind of look into. But that's just a theory. I don't want to put it out there of like if you have
Yeah.
sniffles because there's pollen that you're gonna feel
Yeah.
like committing suicide. But that's one of the
Well, it
theories
makes
out there is
sense.
brain chemistry.
If you feel bad, like physically, you're gonna start feeling kind of bad mentally. You get that brain fog and everything. Makes you
Yeah,
just like it looks nice outside, but I don't really want to do anything. And then you mentioned my BDNF article. That's something I really started diving into with the mental health side of things, and why the number one thing that helped with that was exercise out of all the studies.
yeah,
Um, Not too sure. So, and what BDNF is the brain derived neurotrophic factor, which sounds fancy, but it's kind of like the feel good chemicals in the brain. It helps with nerve regeneration, just nerve response, your cognition, your mood. It's the good stuff in the
yeah,
brain essentially, and um, having poor sleep is one of the biggest factors in low BDNF levels.
hmm.
So, firefighters, poor sleep,
Yeah,
then they don't want to exercise, their BDNF levels get low, and that's why, the mobility, the walking, the mindfulness stuff are all things to help get those BDNF levels raised. And that's, again, the feel good chemicals in the brain. And then,
yeah.
you're going to feel better. And then that way, whenever these bad things happen, again, it's not going to affect you quite as bad, or at least you'll at least know what to do to get out of that hole,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Did you ever
So
did you ever read that book Spark by John Rady? I think it's called
I don't think so.
John Rady. So
I have to check it out.
it's pretty awesome, and I have it in a box over there because we were doing the office stuff. It actually has a direct tie to an old power athlete guy, Luke, one of the coaches that was like in the original CrossFit football side of that
Loves
thing.
Luke.
So it was a book written based on a study they did at Naperville High Schools. Naperville is a suburb by where me and Luke kind of grew up, and they started doing this 0 hour gym class which was like at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 or 7 in the morning, period number, or it was before the first period of the day, and they made these kids wear heart rate monitors, and then they did just aerobic exercise. It was like indoor running, outdoor running, nothing extreme, but like zone 2 type of stuff. And then they tracked those kids as they went through their day, and they realized that all these good things happened academically throughout the day when you got an early start on your exercise. And then they go into this massive exploration of BDNF and how they call it the miracle grow for your brain, where it's like, if you have a little bit of something good going on, you sprinkle some BDNF on it, just shoots up, just takes off. Right. It's a very heady book. I have to read each chapter like 2 or 3 times to get it, because they go from like, oh, here's some nice surface level information, and then it's like, boo, here's a study about BDNF, and you're like, oh man,
all these big words.
But it's a fantastic book, and ties right into that. Just how exercise, basically, they were saying, is a foundation for your mental health and in that particular one, your academic health. But that's what I dig about PTSDecember, is that it gives people a reference point back. So it's not like a program where you're like, hey, do this in December and you'll cure your depression and your anxiety and you'll feel a million times better. It's like, hey, try this out a few times, because in the future you might feel like crap, and then you'll be like, oh, you know what, in December I did 5 minutes of mindfulness and that made me a little bit more calm, so maybe I'll try 3 minutes of mindfulness today. And I think that's an awesome point of reference for people as we go through 30 years of terrible stuff, right?
Yes. Well, that's sort of what I kind of do all this stuff anyways, but I know 1 year, like every day in December, I did 15 minutes of silent meditation, and it really got me back in the swings of my meditation anyways. And and that's the thing with it too. You don't just do it once, just like you're saying with, just because you do this in December, it's not like, all right, poof, I'm all better. It's you gotta keep doing it, just like training with strength training. It's not you worked out one time and all right, now I'm a pro. You gotta keep working at it.
Yeah.
So it's to develop these habits that a 5-minute walk, super simple. 5 minutes mindfulness, again, super easy. I've been doing it lately. A 5-minute silent meditation right before bed, and the amount that it has improved my sleep is just astronomical.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes, like at first it was kind of hard, I have a lot of sleep problems, but now there's times where like I'm about to lay down and I'm like, I gotta do my 5 minutes of meditation, and it's like struggling to kind of like stay awake and focused, and then I'm out. And it's all from just kind of knowing that this was coming, and I was like, okay, well maybe it'd be good to pair it up, if you can find something. I think it's in the book Tiny Habits, where it talks about, if you're wanting to try something new, pick something that you already automatically do and add it to it. And so you're gonna go to sleep. So if you can do a 5-minute meditation before sleep, there you go. Or you can do it right when you wake up. That's what I was doing with the 15 minutes. But hopefully it's something that you don't just do in December, that it continues and carries on, or you go like, what, this 5 minutes feels really good, I'm going to start doing it for 10 now, or 15 or 20. And then it just, it goes from there. And just how I know, like you've pointed out with the pillars of wellness, you can't really just do one thing either. There, you got to have your nutrition on point, your mindfulness, your sleep, some movement in there. Again, it doesn't have to be like strongman stuff like I do or whatever, just some sort of movement. And that's why I just pick mobility.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're going to be providing, are you going to post stuff every day, or is it going to be like a week of itinerary, or how's it going to run through social media?
So yeah, I know last year I did a post like every day, and it ended up being kind of stressful doing that. Yeah. Even in a way, it was kind of a good thing for me, because that was when I was just starting out with my nerve injury. Kind of gave me something positive to do, because I was off work and that really sucked. I didn't know how long I didn't know if I'd even be able to go back to the job because they were telling me it might be permanent.
Yeah.
So it gave me something constructive to do, but it's still, and especially because it's the holidays, it's tough doing that. So I think I'm just going to do maybe like once a week kind of
Sure.
post, maybe twice a week, but I'm not really holding myself to where like, okay, I got to get a post out every day, because then that's tough on my mental health.
Yeah.
And doing a mental health campaign that is then hurting my mental health, not exactly.
It's like need a vacation from your vacation, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it'll just probably be like once a week, but I'll probably still be putting on like the story of the Instagram or something, like
Yeah.
the 555, something like that, and then if people want to repost and tag sort of thing,
Yeah. Oh man, I think someone's trying to break and enter in the office here.
Uh-oh, invaders.
Dude, we got one of those doorknob things on it though. It's difficult, but they can bypass if they really want to.
Yeah. My kids are at their grandparents right now, so unless Lori tries to break in here,
it literally dawned on me last night when I was laying down at work. I'm like, oh, Nathan doesn't have school. Like until I just forgot about it completely. So let's go over what it's, and you didn't prepare this. It's kind of an ambush question, but let's go over what it's not. Because what if someone starts on day one, ready to rock and roll, and they start doing 5 minutes of meditation first, and like 2 minutes in, they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like,
all right,
what then? Right.
Yeah, glad you brought that up, because it's like mindfulness doesn't have to be silent meditation, and even then meditation doesn't have to be sitting quiet in a room humming Kumbaya and whatnot. There's so many different ways to train mindfulness. It's about just being aware of the present moment. You can combine mindfulness with a walk. If you're walking and you're on your phone or something, you're not really being in the present moment. You're paying attention to whatever's on your phone. So put your phone up for that 5 minutes, do a walk, just focus on how you're moving, how you're feeling. If you're outside, however, I know it's a lot colder where you are, but it feels pretty nice here.
It's 40 and rainy today. It's 40 and rainy. It's looking good. The sun's behind those clouds somewhere. It's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so you can combine it. You could actually you could combine them all, do a 15-minute mindfulness walk, and then you're basically including some mobility in there as well. Especially if you, I sometimes walk barefoot because I'm a weird hippie like that. Or I put on my barefoot shoes.
Influencer, dude.
More influencer stuff.
Yeah.
I hate that.
God bless.
I hate even feeling like that. And that's so. Whenever you first said that, it's like a Liver King. I couldn't stand
if you grew a beard.
Liver King.
If you grew a beard,
damn it, he's doing a lot of stuff that's good, but he just takes it to such extremes.
Yeah.
And presents it in this way where people think, oh, I gotta, eat a bunch of liver and walk around in the woods. Like,
okay, so you're 2 for 2 so far because you make your own liver pills, right? You walk around barefoot. Dude, you're a beard away from this guy.
Though, saying like, hey, this will get you jacked, because that was one thing that drove me nuts too, is I had people saying like, yeah, I'm gonna eat some liver now and I'll get jacked like Liver King, and I was like, no, you might get healthier.
Yeah, God forbid, right?
Yeah.
Let's not worry about getting jacked. Let's just bring you up to healthy. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude. Man, I had a question, and the Liver King thing kind of blew my brain out because that's pretty funny. Because now I'm just thinking of the Liver King stuff I've seen. He loves to walk around dragging a sled. You also love to walk around dragging a sled.
Yes.
You're a beard away. You're some scruff away from the Liver King. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I had a nice beard whenever I was injured.
Shirtless. So you guys both walk around shirtless all the time.
I am shirtless a lot,
dude. Yeah. It's getting weirder and weirder. What do you think? If I can ask, one about your practice of mindfulness, if you're having a tough time getting into a mindfulness state or being present in the moment, which of like the 5 senses do you naturally tap into to bring yourself there? So like, I tend to pick something up besides my phone. Like if I'm down at the nature area with Nathan, he loves to throw rocks in the river. And if I find myself struggling or thinking about like, oh, I got to do an interview later, or I got stuff at work, throw some rocks with him. And then I'll hold on to a rock and be like, okay, this physical thing is what I'm focusing on right now for the next 5 minutes kind of thing. I know there's that step of like, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you list off 5 things that you're smelling or whatever it is, but which one kind of appeals to you? Like, what's your practice for getting back into the present moment?
Yeah. You're talking about grounding basically.
Yeah.
And my go-to is always just a real deep inhale through the nose and then exhale out the mouth. Just a nice calming breath. Tends to always bring me back in. Another thing I tend to do is just, I don't really know where I got it from necessarily, but I tend to like make a circle like in my fingers with my nail. It just kind of, I don't know, it's something that's kind of calming that I picked up at some point. So I either do a nice deep inhale breath to reset, bring me back in that present moment, or something to just kind of, a touch kind of thing to where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
bring me back in.
So it's probably a lot of stuff that people do naturally, like fidgeting that people do naturally already, but they're doing
Yeah.
that while they're distracted. And maybe if you just bring attention to that action, that's your mindfulness right there. Just
Exactly. They don't think about it, they do it, but that's why once you can bring that awareness to it, it's like, okay, now I can start to calm things down a bit. It gets it to where it's not only going to help just with your anxiety or whatever, but like your actual decision making too, so that's why like a big thing when, tones drop and say you got a structure fire can be extremely helpful, to not have that fight or flight response and just get all panicked. And then when you're not getting enough oxygen, your CO2 balance and O2 balance get all jacked up.
Yeah.
That's why people panic and then they're not breathing right. And then like, man, I don't even know what happened. Why did I freak out so bad?
Yeah.
Like, cause you're not breathing, your oxygen balance is all thrown off and fries your nervous system. So if you can get to where you take that good calming breath, slow down your breathing, just everything's better whenever you can have better control of your nervous system and actually regulate it instead of it just being on the fritz. And that brings me up to another point, where a lot of what's actually wrong with firefighters isn't necessarily so much PTSD, it's their nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly in that fight or flight mode and they can't down regulate when they get home.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had that. I feel like I've talked to you about it before on one of the podcasts. I don't know, but where you get home and do y'all use like lights and tones for your calls at your station? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The brutal.
So
yeah.
I'm sure you've had those moments where, say, you've had a rough night or something. You're somewhere in the dark and someone in the family flips a light on, and and you get that response, and that's why, like, sometimes I joke because my house looks like a little vampire cave at night because we got red lights everywhere. But that's another thing I started doing that was extremely helpful for my sleep.
Yeah.
Those bright lights tend to jack you up, and then especially for us, that's the way we get toned out. So if someone flips a light on, whether you like it or not, whether you're a seasoned veteran, or a rookie, like, it's gonna have that response in you. You might not react the same way, but it's doing things just like breathing and your blood pressure. You can't just control it necessarily. Although breathing can sometimes control, but you know what I mean.
That's what we realized. I started putting heart rate monitors on some guys, and when they show me the heart rate monitor data, or they're wearing their Apple Watch or anything like that, and some veteran guys would tell me like, I don't get jacked up like you used to. Like the tones don't startle me. It's just more noise, And what we're kind of finding out is like they do impact your heart still, but you're just so accustomed to feeling it that feels normal.
Yeah, it just feels normal.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel abnormal, but that's because you've been conditioned to feel that way. It's very abnormal, so let's not do that anymore. The thing that gets me is noise, which is brutal because with Nathan and Sawyer running around, it's a constant fight for attention.
Yeah, and there's too much noise.
Well, abrupt noise. Like if he throws something like a transformer and it like spikes it on the ground or something like that, that little crack of noise is just so off-putting to me. Like, makes me react so quickly. And we got to tell him like, hey, that's too much for Dad's ears right now. Like you can make noise, like you can yell and you can scream, but the abrupt, like surprising noise just fries me, dude. And I was thinking about the other day, I was listening to a podcast and they were saying how much they like the natural light alarm clocks. Have you seen those where it's like the size of a dinner plate, and instead of using sound, it just starts getting slowly brighter over the course of an hour until it's like a lamp on. And I used to have one, but I got a really cheap one. It never really worked very well. It was like turning on in the middle of the night, and the instructions were like in Chinese. It was very difficult to figure out. But I do remember when I used it, I was like, oh, this will be better than waking up to an alarm. What happened was I was waking up when it was still dark, but then I woke up and a light was on. And that's just like missing the tones on a call, and you wake up and the lights are on.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, what did I miss? Like, I got to go.
Yeah.
So it was actually more panicking to me when I slept through it and the lights were on.
Yes.
Then I woke up and I was like, I must be missing a call, even though I've been home for 2 days, you know? So,
yeah.
All right. So let's go on to this can be our last thing, because I'm interested in this with mobility. If you had to pick one person of general fitness ability, just regular firefighter standing in front of you, wearing his cargo pants and tucked in shirt, and you had to pick one area of his body to do 2.5 minutes of mobility per side on, or 5 minutes total on, what would you pick that they can start with as like a, hey, this is the big bang for your buck and easy to get into, and just try this for a few days to get going?
Yeah. I feel like I remember you going over this on a podcast episode once.
Probably.
Or you've had, yeah.
Probably.
But like, there's a lot of spots you could hit, and it's going to depend on the individual, but like your generalization thing, hate to say just one spot because it is a whole body thing, but if you had to pick something, I would probably say the hips.
Yes, man.
Yeah. Couch stretch. Yep. That's like the go-to. And then especially, you know, people think, oh, firefighting is such an active profession. And it can be, but just as you know, there's a lot of downtime, a lot of time sitting, even if it's not necessarily downtime. You know, you sit in a truck and run calls, you sit to type reports, you sit to watch a movie or whatever. It is downtime. And you're missing that hip extension, which is a big part of why people get back pain. And then just, you know, it's a big thing. I had the great opportunity of having Kelly Starrett at the last Power Athlete Collective.
Nice.
And he was real big on, and he did a whole thing on hip extension and how people tend to miss it by, you know, not just with, people tend to think of it by just standing straight with that extension, but getting the knee behind the butt. So, and you'll see people like, especially, you know, including movements like that in your training is going to make a big difference. So not just your mobility work, but hit some more split squat kind of stuff.
My man with the split squats.
Yeah, I love the split squats too, and all different variations of them. But a key thing that a lot of people mess up on with their positioning is they don't get that knee behind the butt necessarily.
Sure.
You know, if they're doing like a Bulgarian split squat and they have that rear foot up, a lot of times they don't have it far back enough to where that knee is behind the butt and they're staying too vertical.
Sure.
So making sure you're hitting that good hip extension, hitting that full range of motion, you know, that's going to help. That's a lot of back pain problems. And that's a very common injury and complaint in the fire service.
I'm with you, man.
I would say the hips.
I think it's perfect. I love the couch stretch I would consider it awesome, but pretty aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say that definitely just taking one knee down, like the old take a knee football thing, and just moving that front foot a little farther forward and just kind of sitting forward into your hip, I think that can do a lot of good for people too, and probably more accessible for like the bay floor or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or even like putting your foot up on something like the tailboard or just a box or whatever you happen to have, just getting that foot up and that other leg staying back, and you just kind of moving those hips forward a little bit, you know, and you don't even necessarily have to have 1 foot elevator or not, just getting into that split stance, you know. And
awesome, man.
You can just do something, you know, you're standing there in the mornings drinking coffee, 2 minutes on each leg, add another 30 seconds or so of something else. That's 5 minutes of mobility work right there.
That's perfect. I think that's your first couple of videos is you with the heavy mug, drinking coffee and doing tailboard hip stretches. Just
I'd have so this is my blueberry and liver shake.
Oh my God, dude. You are just too what is going on? Come on,
it's
man.
really good.
Come on, dude. Fine.
You should try
fine. Whatever. I should do a lot of things, but I just won't.
It's really good. I got like an orange element in there too.
Yeah,
and some
of course
Greek yogurt.
Do. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Probably some athletic greens. Probably the pillow that everybody likes, the cube pillow. It's probably in there.
I don't have any sponsors though.
Probably got some Bombas socks in there and some. What else you got in there? You little influencer.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What else do you want to run through, or else we're wrapping this baby up, man? That was an incredible amount of information, in a short period of time. So the floor is yours. We can go as deep as you want on whatever else you want, or we can wrap this puppy up and you can invite everybody to PTS December.
So I would like to bring up though that in the past it's always kind of been more firefighter focused, and this time it's more first responder
Cool.
focused. So everybody, so whether it's police, fire, EMS, dispatch, we all work together as a team. So it's for everyone, and then obviously even then family members too. It's not like you have to do this and I'm a military veteran. This is more focused. I think military gets a lot of attention now. It didn't used to. But that's why I'm from both worlds. I'm trying to kind of break the stigma in the fire service, and that's another big motivation behind this. Because when I first started, a lot of guys would come to me because they'd feel comfortable talking to me about PTSD, knowing that I was a combat veteran. And a lot of guys tend to kind of push it to the side in the fire service, and to me, it just blows my mind because we see a lot of things that are sometimes worse than what a lot of people see in the military.
Sure.
And not only that, but there's this constant stress where it's like you could have ran one of the worst calls in your career and then an hour later go home to your wife and kids.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, oh, hey, you got to fix the clogged sink and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I have a clogged sink right now, so that's why that comes to
Perfect.
mind. Yeah. And you still have to do all these things, whereas on a deployment, like I did in the Marine Corps, I'm in Afghanistan for 8 months. Like that's my focus. I do my patrol. I'm back. It's very mission focused, and then you come back, and then you have a bunch of issues that you deal with.
Yeah, perfect.
But when you're going back and forth all the time, it's very hard to down regulate and get yourself back into dad or husband mode or whatever it is. So that's kind of the goal of this, and get everyone involved because everyone needs help with it. There's suicide rates are high in all the first responder professions. So definitely want to try and do something to be more proactive about that, and hopefully get those numbers down.
Yeah. I think the family getting included is key, dude. Like you do a great job incorporating your kids into working out, and your wife is a monster in the best way. I mean, that came out. I don't want that to be.
Well, she does have a nickname of the Lorister from when I was in the Marines.
Awesome.
So, because you didn't want to mess with the
dude,
Lorister.
Lori back in the day, I bet was just dude. Dude.
You didn't want to piss her off.
No, man. But I can tell you that the times I've done like these campaigns or anything like that, I'll on average more wives or friends or support from the firefighters like it or share it or contact me than the actual firefighters do. And because they see it. Yeah, they see it. And no matter how much you think you're hiding it, you're not. Right. And so then I'll have wives reach out to me like, oh, this is great. Maybe I'll get so-and-so to try this for the month. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I won't talk to them, but if you want to send them my way, go ahead. So yeah, if we can get families to pay attention, or if you can get families to pay attention and share it, that might be an even better way to spread this thing around because then the dum-dums like us will know like, oh, I guess I'm not hiding it as good as I thought I was for the past 10 years,
Well, and it'll help them too. That's the thing that doesn't get talked about much is the family side of thing. Everyone focuses on the firefighter or police officer or whoever who's struggling, but what about the spouse? They're watching their loved one just kind of fade away.
Yeah.
That's what, like, whenever I first came on your podcast and told my story, like, Lori was very against it. She didn't tell me until after, but she hates to think of that time.
Yeah.
And, she says, like, she used to look at my eyes and my eyes were just gone. It's like she had lost her husband basically and didn't know if I would come back. And, that's incredibly painful for the family. So them doing the 555 is a great way for their own mental health too, because that's a whole factor as well. And again, it doesn't get taught. Yeah, there's sometimes stuff for like spouse support, but it's like almost like, well, yeah, we'll give you a little bit of support, but we'll focus more on the firefighter.
But this is a great way to get to the ground floor of it, the grassroots of it. People can pick it up, digest it easily, and then call on a future date. So what are you going to use for a handle? Where can people find the whole movement starting on December 1st?
So at PTSDecember So not PTSD December, December. Kind of flows nicely with the
Very
name.
catchy. I
It's
love it.
on,
Yep.
yeah, it's on Instagram. Then I also made a Facebook page for it. So now, of course, like I feel like Instagram and Facebook always do these updates and
Yeah.
stuff doesn't sync right. But I'm gonna try to post on both because some people use Facebook, some people use Instagram,
Yep.
and I feel like the more people it can reach, the better. And yeah, it's a very simple thing. It's not like a nonprofit or anything. It's just something where you take action, and hopefully it'll lead to more people being proactive about mental health. Maybe lead to some policy changes or something.
Yeah.
Like I've always thought, how much better off both the military and the first responder world would be if in academies and boot camps there was at least a small little section where they talked about mental health
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
because it's like more people die from suicide than like combat, and it doesn't get talked about. It's just kind of ignored,
Mm.
and it shouldn't be. It doesn't get ignored after you get out, but that's when everyone already has these problems and doesn't have any tools on how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
I agree, man. Yeah.
hopefully this can help kind of bring some change with that. So yeah.
And that's an important point just to close it out. You're not selling anything. You're not asking for money. You're not asking for donations. You're not asking for anything besides just,
Yeah.
hey, check it out,
Just do it.
and maybe it can help you out in the future, right? So I think that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Because even I asked for money on this thing. I asked people to donate coffee money or, or whatever. So nothing's free except for PTSDecember. So, dude, thank you. We got to do this more often because it's just easy and fun as long as I can figure out the recording stuff. And it's all good, man. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.